So, I just watched the documentary Leaving Neverland, and I want to talk a bit about that as well as my own sexual abuse as a child. I talked about that before, but watching this documentary, brought a lot of things back and also made me realize some stuff that I want to share with you, and because a lot of people have difficulties understanding um, what sexual abuse does to a child, especially in his later life. The effects are not the effects are actually visible instantly, uh, but uh, they have long term consequences for that person and um, for the later life of that person. I mean, everyone knows that, but no one really knows what these consequences entail unless they've actually experienced it. So I want to talk a bit about that and um, use my own experiences as well as the documentary as an example. I'm not really into modern music. I'm more like a classical guy, and jazz and blues. That's okay too. But that's as modern as it gets with me. So I don't like modern music in general. So I was never a huge fan of Michael Jackson's music, but I was becoming a fan of his videos because he made very involved, high production, high quality videos, music videos, but they're really not music videos. They're like they're like little movies in and of themselves, and I really like them, and I was becoming a big fan of them, and I do reviews of movies and analysis of movies. I did a lot of film reviews and analysis in the past, so I was looking forward to doing that with a lot of Michael Jackson's music videos, because I noticed that there is actually a lot to talk about, a lot to analyze, a lot of symbolism in there, really interesting stuff. So I was preparing to do a whole series about Michael Jackson's videos and about analyzing the symbolism behind it, because it's actually really interesting. So I was going to do that. But of course, in order to prepare for that, I wanted to know more about the background and about Michael, and so I watched a lot of videos about that, and then I stumbled upon that documentary, and initially I immediately disliked it. It was like, oh, they're trying to slander Michael. That was my initial thought, but before watching it. But just you know uh, before watching it, that was immediately my reaction. It's like, oh yeah, because I was becoming a bit of a Michael Jackson fan myself, not of the music, but of his videos. So my immediate reaction was like, obviously they're lying, and obviously they want to slander his image, and even after his death, and even after his death, they're after his money, trying to make a quick buck and becoming famous by slandering him with these obviously false allegations. That's what I thought before I watched the documentary. And so I initially I didn't even want to watch it, but then I thought, well, if I'm gonna do these kinds of analysis videos regarding Michael Jackson, then I might as well do that with this documentary as well, and watch it and expose it, and expose those people as the liars and the frauds they are. That was my intention. So when I did ultimately watch it, that was my intention. I wanted because I was becoming a Michael Jackson fan of the videos. So that was my intention. I wanted to analyze this documentary and look for clues, that they might be lying, and expose them as frauds, and that's the typical reaction, like any typical Michael Jackson fan. And a lot of Michael Jackson fans have done that, exactly that, and have done already these types of videos, analyzing the documentary and trying to expose these people who make these allegations against Michael, exposing them as frauds and as liars, and there are a lot of videos out there by Michael Jackson fans who already did that. So I wanted to do that too, and do it on a deeper level. And I thought, obviously, I'm sort of qualified to do that because of my own experiences of sexual abuse in my childhood. Because these guys are claiming that they've been sexually abused for many years in their childhood, and I actually have been, whereas they are lying, or at least that's what I thought. So it would be easy for me to expose them as the frauds they are. That was my intention. That didn't work out very well, because whereas I had that, because it's kind of a defense mechanism for Michael Jackson fans, right? When they hear such allegations, they, defensively, like I did, react by accusing them as frauds and as liars who are after money. Because they don't want to believe that this documentary is true. They don't want to believe that these allegations could be true, because it would ruin their star. So that's why this documentary affected me so much. Not just because of the topic of sexual abuse, which of course is difficult for me because of my own childhood. But that wasn't the difficult part. The most difficult part was that it completely ruined Michael Jackson for me, because other ordinary Michael Jackson fans, they can avoid that. They can avoid having their star being ruined for them by reacting with this kind of defense mechanism, saying, "Oh yeah, they're lying." But after watching it, I couldn't do that, because I knew that it was true. Precisely because of my own experiences, of my own sexual abuse as a child. Because, and that's why the documentary was very interesting for me, because I noticed that, the methods that Michael used to groom these victims was exactly the same type of methods that were used on me as a child to groom me. And in that sense, it was very enlightening for me, because before watching that documentary, I didn't even realize that I had been groomed. I mean, I realized that I had been sexually abused for many years, but up until now, I didn't even realize how systematically I have been groomed for this sexual abuse, just as they have been. And their reaction to it, and the way, they're talking about it, and, these are not, the way they're talking about it are not, these are very typical ways of, it's the same way I talk, You can see how I'm struggling, and they are struggling. Of course they're struggling. And I can see a lot of, relations there. I've been going through a lot of the same things they have been going through. And and I know what these things are, and I know that these things can't be faked. Only someone who has actually been groomed and sexually abused knows about a lot of the details that they know about, and reacts and talks the way that they do. So I know that they are not lying because I can see myself in them. So I know it's true. So yeah, Michael Jackson's totally ruined for me. So that's the downside. The upside is that it taught me a lot about my own sexual abuse as well. Like, for example, realizing that I have been systematically groomed, and that a lot of manipulative methods were used on me. Because when they were talking about these methods, I realized, hey, the same methods were used with me. The same methods are always used, when children are groomed for these horrible abuses. So yeah. So a lot of the things that other people take as indication for why the people in the documentary might be lying, I take as an indication that they're telling the truth. And there are a lot of these things. So at the end of the day, I know that they're telling the truth. But just to give you an example, that the most obvious thing is, of course, that a lot of people are saying, well, they changed their story. Initially they said they weren't abused, or either didn't say anything. And initially they didn't say anything, and then they said they weren't abused. When Michael asked them to defend him, and now they're suddenly saying, after so many years, they're suddenly saying, oh yeah, they were abused. After they already, as children, testified in Michael's defense. So obviously they're lying. That's how an ordinary viewer would view it, and that's that combined with the need to protect their idol, makes a lot of Michael Jackson fans dismiss this documentary as lies. Yeah. But to me, it tells me the exact opposite. It tells me that they are telling the truth, or at the very least, it would be the other way around. If right away they would have accused him of systematic sexual abuse right away, then I would know that they would be lying. Well, of course I wouldn't know for certain, but it would be a huge red flag for me, and I would be almost certain that someone like that has to be lying. So now you're saying, well, weren't there some children that came out right away and accused him of sexual abuse right away? Yes, but these children weren't sexually abused over a longer period of time. They were not systematically groomed. So yes, if it's like a one-time incident, and if there's no grooming, and it's not systematic, and it's not over a long period of time, then yes, even a child is able to right away go to the police, go to the parents, and say, hey, look, this bad man touched me here, and he did that, and I didn't like that, and he did this and that, and he hurt me, and it really hurt, and I didn't like that. Even a young child can do that if it's a one-time thing, and if the child is not being manipulated. But in this case, and as well in my own childhood, we're talking about systematic sexual abuse, pre-planned, very systematic, very intentional, very calculated, very manipulative, what we call grooming. So a child who's being manipulated like that is not capable of getting help. That's the whole point of grooming. So yeah. So if they would have claimed that, if right away they would have claimed that they were abused, if they would have claimed that right away and said right away that they were being systematically abused over a long period of time, then I would know that they're lying, because that's impossible. But precisely because they acted the way they did, and it's not just in this instance, we can't talk about the whole movie, but there are a lot of little things, little details that tell me that they're telling the truth, because I know all of this, I recognize all of this from my own childhood. So, yeah. Most people, or most people who have been sexually abused would end the video here, and initially I wanted to end the video here as well, but so if you have a low attention span and don't want to listen to some of the specifics, or just about how this actually works and how the child is manipulated, stop here, and but I feel that I should talk about it, precisely because most other people don't talk about it, so people don't know what to look out for, or they look for the wrong things, and let themselves be misled by the perpetrator, because the perpetrator doesn't just mislead the target. The perpetrator also misleads the people around the target to prevent these people from helping, or to deceive these people, essentially. And sadly, that works pretty well, precisely because people don't know what to actually look out for, because most people don't talk about it. Those who know it but haven't experienced it themselves don't want to talk about it out of fear of giving such evil perpetrators sort of a guide on how to do it. But that's a stupid argument, because they don't need a guide. It's just, to such evil people, it sort of comes natural. Do you need a guide? Assuming you're a woman, just as an example, and you're into, you're straight and you're into guys. Do you need a guide on how to attract guys? Do you need a guide for that? No, you don't. It's just, it just comes kind of natural to you, sadly, in a normal, relationship, that's not sad, but, so you can't prevent this kind of abuse, just by not telling these evil people how to do it. They know how to do it, just like how to attract men or women, that you like. They know how to attract the kinds of people that they like, or they, just sort of instinctively, or they just, work on figuring it out, and so I'm gonna talk about the stages of grooming now, but the perpetrators don't have to know about these stages. They just kind of naturally go by these stages and use these kinds of tactics, because that's how they can attract the kind of people that they are into. And of course, for people who have been victims, it's difficult to talk about these things, precisely because of their trauma. So you have to excuse me if I stumble and mumble, and it's difficult for me to talk about, but precisely because it's difficult, and precisely because so many other people either don't really know about it, or don't dare talk about it, or are too traumatized to talk about it, I feel that I have to be talking about it, just so that people really know what to look out for. Because a lot of people got it completely wrong. The traditional, usual thing that you tell children is, don't talk to strangers, and you think that would protect them. That does not protect them at all. That's the worst advice you can give to a child if you want to protect it, because the evil people know that as well. They know that strangers are usually not trusted. You know, I showed that before, in one of my videos, that little scene, that infamous scene from It, where Pennywise appears to Georgie in the gutter, and Pennywise introduces himself, and well, actually at first he doesn't really introduce himself. So, he starts talking to Georgie, and Georgie says, "I'm not supposed to talk to strangers." And then Pennywise is like, "I am Pennywise, the dancing clown, and you are Georgie. So now we know each other." Yeah? So see how easy it is to get around that, right? So yeah, that doesn't help because, of course, someone like that will take the time to get to know the target, and once they know each other, the perpetrator will start to flatter the target, and say a lot of nice things, and especially with children, that doesn't by itself, that doesn't come across as threatening at all, and even to a third party, it just looks like, oh, this person is very nice to the child, and actually by itself, just telling the child nice things and increasing the confidence of the child, saying like, "Oh yeah, you can achieve things," and it's nice things. It's not bad, So initially, this initial stage of complimenting, of making compliments and saying nice things to the target, that by itself isn't something bad, and especially with children, it's actually it's a good thing if you say nice things to children, if you're friendly with them, and if you do things that gives them confidence, and and you give them attention, and you help them, that's of course so nice and good, and by itself that's a good thing, not a bad thing. So that by itself isn't a bad thing at all, but so don't think that just because someone is nice to a child, that he's a bad person. No, of course not. But also don't think that just because someone is nice to a child, he can't be a bad person, because you can't you can't judge it either way. Just because of that that by itself doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean that the intention has to be good or bad. It can mean either. That by itself means nothing. But what you have to look for is the other stages and the intention, of course. Even just this stage of being very nice to the child and so on. What's the intention? And of course, with Michael, even that first stage should have raised some suspicion, right? Because in the documentary, the parents were saying, "Oh yeah, look, this great star is giving us all this attention, and he could have anyone as his friend, but he wants us as his friends, so they're already being groomed. Not just the child, the parents too are being groomed, and they're being flattered, and they're being made to feel special, So, but instead of saying, "Oh yeah, we are special," he thinks we're special, you should put it into a question. Why does he think you're special? Why, out of all the people? I mean, Michael Jackson, could be friends with anyone in the world, and of course there are people that live much closer to him than Australia, because one of the families in the documentary was from Australia, right? So not close by, So they felt special, and they felt like, oh, we're from Australia, we're so far away, yet he picks us, and so we're special. So even the parents felt special, But you should ask yourself, yeah, if you're in Australia, well, why would he pick you out of all the people in the world? Are you really so special? Of what is so special about you? Are you maybe especially gullible? Are you maybe susceptible to his flattery? Is that what's special about you? That you're especially easy to manipulate when being flattered? When being told that you're special, that you feel all warm and fuzzy and you're easily manipulated that way? Is that what's special about you? That's the question you should ask. And, of course, ask what is his intention. Why is he being so nice to you? I mean, he could be friends with anyone. He could be nice to anyone else, but he chooses to be nice to you. Why? Right? What is so special about you? What is his intention? Already there, under normal circumstances, a normal person, would already see a red flag there and ask himself that question. But precisely because Michael not only worked on the child, but also worked on the parents and groomed the parents as well, Michael didn't just make the child feel special, Michael made the parents feel special as well. So the parents were already manipulated. Instead of asking themselves why they're so special to Michael, they just, felt flattered by it and were like, oh, Michael, this great star, Michael Jackson thinks that we're special, and they're incredibly flattered, and they don't ask themselves why that is. They just, they want to feel special, they don't ask why. They just, oh, yeah, I'm special, so that's how they manipulate it, and that's how, one of the first stages works. It's like, just making the target feel special. And then, then it goes from there, And of course, that first stage is harmless in and of itself, but of course, a perpetrator will follow that up with the other stages. And then from there, he will, increasingly gain, the target's trust, and by trusting them, they make themselves vulnerable, But of course, they don't trust the perpetrator right away. They trust the perpetrator because the perpetrator made them feel special and was nice to them and maybe fulfilled some of their wishes and told them what they wanted to hear and flattered them, So they want to feel special, and they want to believe all that. And of course, if someone is so nice, then you start to trust them, and that's one of the next stages, is building this kind of trust. And then, of course, once you trust someone, then you like to be with them, or it's okay if you're with them. Normally, maybe you wouldn't go with someone alone, but since now you trust that person, he's okay, he's nice, and you trust him, then, it's okay, because already there should have been a red flag there, and, Michael doesn't dispute at all that he surrounded himself with children like 24/7, and that they slept in the same bed with him. Normally, again, that would raise a red flag. But because he has been grooming and manipulating everyone around him, they trust him, And the parents were like, oh, yeah, normally I wouldn't have my small child sleep with an adult man. But in the case of Michael, it's okay. We trust Michael, and we know that Michael doesn't do anything bad, And normally it'd be weird for a grown man to be sleeping in the same bed with little children. That'd be weird, if they're not his own children. That'd be a bit weird. But with Michael, it's okay, and Michael has good intentions. And Michael explained to us why, in his case, it's okay. It's because Michael had a very lonely childhood and basically had no childhood because he was on tour so much. So he had no childhood. So he just, wants to relive his childhood. That's why he surrounds himself with so many little children and has them sleep in his bed and so on. That's why he does that. It's simply because he didn't have a childhood. But hello. That's what the parents said in the documentary after they were already being manipulated by Michael, because of course this makes no sense. I didn't have a childhood either. If anyone didn't have a childhood, it's me. I didn't have a normal childhood at all. I had no childhood, basically. My childhood consisted of being sexually abused. Yet still, because, I'm not an evil person, I don't surround myself with, little children and have them sleep in my bed. That'd be very inappropriate, even for someone who didn't have a childhood. So that makes no sense if you think about it rationally. But because the parents were already being manipulated, they didn't think rationally anymore. They wanted to feel special. So that's why they were okay with the next stage, and that's isolation. So the perpetrator isolates the victim. And in this case, Michael increasingly isolated his targets from their family, and he basically became their family. And and then then it goes from there. And one of the things that that kind of struck me, and it's obvious, right? If you watch this documentary, it's obvious, that these things aren't right, and that then one thing leads to the other, and only someone with a bad intention would do these things and manipulate these people like that, right? So it's obvious when you watch it in a documentary like that. But even with my own childhood, I didn't even realize that. So, for example, Michael told these children that, oh yeah, you don't need to get an education, you don't need to go to school. Just spend all your time with me. You don't need to go to school. You don't need to see your parents. And education isn't important. Just spend all your time with me. Obvious red flag right there, right? Super obvious. And of course, he tells them not to get an education so that they're dependent on him. So in the future, they're also dependent on him. They won't really be able to make an income on their own, so they'll always be dependent on him, and that's why he tells them not to get an education. And yeah, it's super obvious that he's manipulating them and how evil all this is that he's doing. And not just, so it's not just the sexual abuse itself, all the manipulation that goes with it, like telling them not to get an education so that they always be dependent on him and always be able to be manipulated by him. That's very evil, and I noticed that. I noticed that when I watched the documentary. I didn't notice that in my own childhood. Up until now, I never realized, maybe